Good morning, everyone. On this blustery Sunday, at least for us, it's a blustery Sunday. We're going to begin service with our opening song provided by Lynn Israel in her video performance of Whoever You Are.
Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Thank you, Lynn. So good morning, everyone. I'm Megan Rancier, and I will be presenting service today along with my husband, John Schütze. Robin Perry and Kevin and Noelle McClooney are providing technical assistance today, so thank you to them. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. We're glad that we can keep in touch and support our community, even if we can't be together in person. Please be aware we are recording this service and it will be posted on our Facebook and YouTube pages. We seek inspiration and meaning from a great many faith traditions and philosophies. We support each other's lifelong spiritual journey, and we encourage work for justice and peace. We value open minds and loving hearts. Here, may our minds stretch, our hearts open, and our spirits deepen. Please take a moment to think of all your friends at MVUUC. Greet them with a comment in the chat box. And remember that you can still reach out to them through email, phone calls, social media, or video chat. Physical distancing does not need to mean emotional distancing. Let us support one another. Visitors, as we are a diverse group with varying interests and beliefs, our services are varied in format, tone, and topic. We encourage you to view several services to gain a good understanding of our congregation. If you'd like to receive our weekly email newsletter, please email us at news@mvuuc.org, and that email address is in the chat box. MVUUC remains committed to supporting our members and friends during this difficult time of social distancing. For that reason, we are coordinating assistance with groceries, phone calls, and other needs. If this sounds like something that would be helpful to you, please send an email to sac@mvuuc.org, and that email is also in the chat box. And please include your name and what kind of assistance you would like to request. Now is the time for announcements. Announcements can be sent ahead of time to services@mvuuc. That address is also in the chat box. If you have an important announcement now, you can raise your hand by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of the participant box in Zoom. Then we will announce your name and turn on your mic and camera so you can make your announcement yourself. Robin, are there any announcements today?
Yes, so Megan has an announcement that you can vote early today, November 1st, from 1 to 5 p.m. at your county board of elections. And early voting tomorrow, November 2nd, will also be available from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Thank you, Robin. Does anyone else have an announcement they'd like to share?
that looks like it might be it.
Okay. And the chalice today will be lit by Megan. Please join me in reading the words for the chalice lighting that appear as a comment in the chat box. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
And now we will have a video performance of hymn number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Feel free to sing along with the lyrics shown in the video.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise.
And thank you to the Community Church of New York for that video performance. So our opening words this morning come from David M. Horst, and this is titled The Last Leaf. Once, many gray autumns ago, I came upon a tree. The tree, a poplar, had dropped all of its leaves but one, just one. Exactly one leaf remained near the topmost part of the tree, fluttering in the breeze like a little reddish-brown flag. All of the other leaves lay about the ground or had blown away. I stopped and looked and marveled at the sight. I wondered what the odds might be that I was the one person who happened to arrive at that one tree at that one moment, when but one leaf remained. What were the odds? I felt an instant kinship with the one leaf. I admired its stubbornness. I spoke quietly to it. Hang on, never give up, don't let go. I gazed at the last leaf for a time, though I did not stay to witness its falling. I did not want to witness its falling. The leaf was not ready to let go and drop silently to the ground, and neither was I, though I knew we both would, in time, let go. I praised the last leaf on that autumn day many years ago when I was still young. I walked on, and slowly, imperceptibly, a sense of calm came over me, a sense of acceptance, a sense of peace. The exuberance of summer is gone. Grand plans and high hopes give way to chilly reality. We loved as best we could. We've reaped as much as we could. We've traveled life's journey as far as we could. We count our blessings and our losses. All leaves must fall. The circle of the year comes round. Our hemisphere tilts away from the sun. Green turns to gold. Life returns to the soil. Animals retreat. The nights grow long. The natural world lies fallow. The season of letting go comes as it always comes. Winter begins.
Good morning. For those of us who don't live on the equator, and I imagine that's everybody joining us today, the seasons impact our lives in so many ways. And of course, I am referring to the seasons in temperate and subpolar regions. I am aware there are dry and rainy seasons that absolutely affect people in certain parts of the world. But I am referring to the seasons that we all know in this area, where the decreasing light, temperatures, physical and personal space that come with autumn, including until relatively recently, the decreases in food that came along with autumn and brought about a huge shift in our bodies and minds that would be experienced in the following 4 to 6 months. For most of history, succulent fruits and fatty meats from hunting trips that were shared perhaps under the shade of trees just before sunset, or gathering food and hunting in simple clothing, would be replaced with dried provisions in a cramped and smoky environment. And I'm willing to bet that before indoor plumbing, you really felt those first few cold nights of the year. And though I speak in the past tense, we still experience most of these changes to one degree or another. Our houses may have heating, but for most of us, our floors do become a bit colder. We still might feel a shiver when we take that middle of the night bathroom break, or when we have to run outside to grab the mail. And even with indoor lighting, we have to make the conscious adjustment to a world in which our evening meal cannot be enjoyed with the hues of a sunset on your back porch. And if you want to see what made that noise in the backyard, you will have to flip on a light switch, by which time your eyes adjusting to this stark change in light you may have missed. Or you may have scared off those battling raccoons who were fighting over last night's leftovers, and again, missed them. Unless you have high quality UV lights in your house, you may also unconsciously begin to feel the absence of sunlight on your brain chemistry as you experience the change in hormones and other chemical processes intertwined with the rise and set of that gigantic nuclear furnace upon which life as we know it on our planet so greatly depends. We may begin to feel a bit down or become a bit moodier without understanding why or even noticing it in ourselves. An evening sitting on the porch is replaced with another evening at the table, and open windows may be replaced with dry air being recycled through your house. So it's no wonder that at this time of year, from late August through November, when many cultures, again, particularly in temperate and subpolar regions, celebrate not only the harvest festivals that make so much sense with regard to the ending of food production and long warm days, but also the many holidays and celebrations that tie the physical experience to our mental state and even to the spiritual world. Holidays such as Samhain, which has a few different pronunciations throughout the Gaelic world, none of which are Samhain, is not only celebrated at the end of harvest, slaughtering of livestock, and the beginning of winter, but it's also an increased connection to the spirit world that is being celebrated. And many of us know that at this time, spirits were appeased for the winter. We think of scaring things away with Halloween decorations and scary t-shirts. But also it was a time when it was said that the souls of the dead were also thought to revisit their homes seeking hospitality. Feasts were had at which the souls of dead kin were beckoned to attend, and a place set at the table for them. Schütze is also a harvest celebration in late summer, early fall, celebrated in Korea and outside of Korea. Another name for it is Hangaway, if I was pronouncing that correctly. And it is a time for ancestral memorial services at homes and visits to ancestral grave sites. Gaijatra is a holiday celebrated around this time throughout Nepal, although differently in different areas. In one area, Kirtipur, it is said that the gates of heaven for the dead are opened on this day, and the procession of a Gaijatra will help their beloved to reach the gates of heaven if they march around the city for them. While in Bhaktapur, a chariot known as a tahamacha made of bamboo is wrapped in cloth. A photo of a person is often put onto that chariot, as well as even sometimes belongings of the deceased person, which are hung at the center. And it is then navigated through a predefined street by family members, creating a long parade of chariots. Pitru Paksha, which is celebrated differently by different Hindus, also lasts 14 days around the autumnal equinox. And there are many different practices involved with this, but it primarily revolves around giving offerings for your last 1 to 3 generations of ancestors, depending on who you are and what your beliefs are. Yet another festival celebrated through much of Asia is called the Hungry Ghosts Festival, which is celebrated both in Buddhist and Taoist traditions. And this generally involves some kind of a feast with an open seat for the ghosts of relatives. If they're satisfied, the thought is, maybe they won't haunt you. Also, small paper lanterns or boats are released onto water, and these are said to help guide the ghosts who have become lost and wandered into our world. And of course, there are many more familiar celebrations, such as Dia de los Muertos, or the Christian celebrations of All Saints and All Souls Days. And suffice to say, these spiritual holidays take place in so many cultures, and while some may have shared trade routes or religious roots with each other that can explain the ubiquity, they seem to have endured around the globe. These celebrations of ancestral spirits and the afterlife occurring between late August and early November. In some ways, it's kind of weird though, right? That at a time when the sun's beginning to shine less, the earth is beginning to shut down production of most life, and we ourselves may be beginning to feel a little less chipper, somebody said, hey, I know what? Let's have a holiday about death. That ought to put us in a good mood. Or maybe it's really not that weird at all. It kind of seems to me, faced with the prospect of increased isolation and decreased serotonin and physical activity, it might be a good time of year to get a little bit of grief and angst out of your system, to grapple with uncomfortable questions and feelings before you're stuck in a cool, dark room without any dessert. Although in modern days, the problem might be that you're stuck in a cool, dark room with too much dessert. Either way, weather aside, you could just pick a date on a calendar and try and release some of that grief and angst out of your system for the year. But those of you who have experienced the loss of loved ones know that it's not always easy to self-impose such a time. In contrast to the inertia of the self, a cultural holiday not only gives you an external reminder to do this, but also reminds you that these feelings are nearly universal in your community. You are not alone in wanting to communicate with those you can no longer communicate with, and you are not alone in being afraid or at least curious about what comes after. And perhaps more importantly, knowing that these times are set aside each year, that there's a defined or finite period or a finite time when we get a bit of this out of our system can be very helpful, because we know this happens annually we might find it just a tiny bit easier to go through the rest of the year, particularly the rest of the winter, without feeling an obligation to confront these issues or guilt for not expressing them. It's permission to say, I've expressed these feelings of grief for the past or my fear of the afterlife, but the time is over and I can continue with the possibilities of the present. We were reminded by the physical world that things come to an end when we saw the leaves fall and stopped hearing the buzz of insects. Now we say collectively that we're going to address those thoughts and set them aside for another year. In fact, maybe we'll add some good memories into the mix to try and get this out of our system and close the book on them before winter comes and things really get tough. Now, I thought it was important to insert something here that says we've come a long way when it comes to talk therapy and medication and our understandings of mental health, particularly in the last century. So I don't want people to construe what I've been saying here as an interpretation that stiff upper lipping it is a good idea when you need help, particularly in acute or serious situation. Rather, I hope that despite the over-commercialization of Halloween, the cultural appropriation of Dia de los Muertos, and the taboos of certain topics, we can adopt and or reflect on some of the positive aspects of these holidays I've mentioned. I hope that we can find strength in them to prepare for the darkness, even if we aren't finding the strength in ourselves. And that it's both okay to act on these feelings and to move on, if only for a year. Thank you.
John. So I'm going to give our UU Principles Connection this morning. A lot of us may not be comfortable thinking of death, but many, if not most of us, are able to appreciate the sensory pleasures of autumn. The falling leaves, getting our sweaters out of storage, sitting around a fireplace or outdoor fire pit, the heavier spice-infused food and drink that we start to crave as outdoor temperatures start to drop. And this, I think, is a good starting point for the connection between embracing the season when the earth is laying itself to rest and beginning to feel at peace with the circle of life, which of course includes life's ending. If we can learn to find joy in the darkening days and colder nights, as human cultures all over the world have done for thousands of years, then perhaps we can learn not to fear the eventual darkening of our own individual sparks of life, but instead to honor it as part of the immense, constantly turning wheel of the cosmos and all beings that exist within it. So in my UU Principles Connection, I'd like to highlight Principle 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Because remember that just as existence isn't necessarily limited to our waking hours, neither is it limited to our physical living and breathing. We exist beyond these limitations through dreaming and through memory. Our loved ones who have passed on continue to exist through our continued love and remembrance. Cultural celebrations like All Saints' Day or Dia de los Muertos, Chosao or Pitru Paksha recognize and honor these continued connections across the imagined border between life and death. They imagine the capacity of human beings to overcome the fear of darkness, to persistently feed the fires of warmth and love, and to nourish and support the ties between loved ones regardless of whether their presence is physical or metaphysical. And perhaps the memories of our lost loved ones can help to feed yet another fire, the fire of positive change, pushing us to work harder to shape a more just, equitable world that our loved ones would have wanted for us. So may the gradually darkening days from autumn to winter serve as a gentle reminder to wrap yourself up warmly in memories of your loved ones, in gratitude for the love that surrounds you in this life, and in renewed strength and determination to face whatever lies ahead. Now more than ever, we are counting on your pledge payments and donations to help sustain and strengthen this congregation that is so important to all of us, supporting our efforts to be a community of truth, love, justice, and service. Please click on the link in the chat box or scan the QR code on the card that you will see shortly. And please be sure to select the correct designation on the drop-down box when you donate. Thank you. And now we will have a video performance of hymn number 6, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Feel free to sing along with the lyrics shown in the video.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life, though with pain I
Our closing words for today are titled Autumn Meditation by Elizabeth M. Strong. We know the leaves are dying. We know that their blaze of beauty is a preparation for death. It is a time when we appreciate the effort of nature to rise above the ordinariness of life and death. It is a time when we visibly comprehend glory and wonder, and we worship with thanks. We feel now that the air is cold and crisp. We feel now a clearing from the skies of the heaviness of the hazes of summer. It is a time when we appreciate the crispness and sharpness of the realities of life and death. It is a time when we physically comprehend the relief that clarity and insight can bring. And we worship with thanks. We hear now the dry rustle of plants and grasses. We hear now a crackling from the earth that tells us of the withering of the fullness of life. It is a time when we appreciate approaching rest from the frantic fullness. It is a time when we hear a different voice within and know that life is settling down for a well-deserved wintering. Let it be so within each of our lives as we prepare for an autumn in our own life cycle. For we all need rest and respite if we are to understand and appreciate the rhythm of life in our soul that enables us to worship with thanks.
And now please join me in reading the words for extinguishing our chalice that can be found in the comments in the chat box. May we continue to feel hopeful and connected, thankful and at peace as we go our separate ways. As we leave this house of joy and sorrow, sharing and laughter, may we remember what has been and look forward to what will be.
After the service, we will turn on all videos and microphones. Please feel free to stay in Zoom and chat with your fellow MVUUC members and friends for our coffee hour. Please be patient as turning on the cameras must be done one at a time, and it can take a few minutes to get to everyone. And now for our closing song, let us sing Go With the Song in Our Heart, in your heart, sorry. You can find the words as a comment in the Zoom chat box. So just give me a second to turn on the music. Ready? Go with the song in your heart. Go with music in your soul. Live with the memory of a melody. Go with the song in your heart. Go with the song in your heart. Oh, until we meet again. The joy of music is our gift to you. Go with the song in your heart. Live with the memory of a melody. Go with the song. Go with the song. Go with the song in your heart. That's the end of the service, but please stay. But please stay for the virtual coffee hour that follows.